when you get to L4E, if your first reaction is to solve this edge, like that, or like this, you are not doing L4E correctly. So when you get L4E, there's 3 different paths you can follow. Doing an insert to a sledge to an insert, or an insert to an insert. So in this case, what I can do is, instead of solving this edge, I could solve this edge with R, U prime, R prime, and then that gives me an insert. If I wanted to solve the edge in the bottom, if I get this case from this angle, I would have to do a U move, then solve this. Here I have 2 options for which edge to move it to. It's better to move it here. It's because you get an insert. You don't want to move it here because you'll get a 3 cycle. The way it's easy to recognize what case you're going to get, because when I do the R, I can preserve one of these 2 edges and bring the other edge down. So if I'm preserving this edge, it's going to be a bar, and I know this edge is facing outwards, so I'll get a bad case. If I face this edge over here, then I know I'm getting a good case because that's oriented. It can just be inserted like that to solve it, like that. But you also need to be careful to look at other edges that you can solve other than just this edge. So when I get this case from this angle, it's better to solve this edge and give myself an insert. This is not going to make a bar when I insert this edge. It's going to be an insert because that is not a bar. That means it's just a 3-move insert away from being solved. So there, I can bring that there, solve this edge, and then I just get that insert. So this logic can be applied to many other L4E cases and alternative algorithms. So when you get this case, your first reaction is typically to insert this edge, then cancel into a hedge. But you could also do it from this angle and do a sledge, which is going to solve this edge, because when you have a bar like this, doing a sledge or a hedge starting on the opposite side of the bar will solve it. So doing like R prime, and then you do L to bring it down here, and then the R will bring it back, and then L prime. And additionally, this edge is going to go here. So this edge will be right here, and then this edge is going to be sent up here. So once again, you'll know that that's going to give you a 3-move insert. So you can do sledge and then cancel into the insert. Another example is when you get this case. So a lot of people will just want to solve it like this, solving this edge, and then solving that, like with an insert. But if you get it from this AUF, you could do another 6-move algorithm by solving this edge. And of course, there's multiple ways of solving this edge, so you have to look for what makes the most sense. If I do it from here, I'll get an insert to a sledge, which isn't that bad, but if there's a possibility of doing an insert to an insert, that's better than doing an insert to a sledge. So in this case, I could do an insert from here to solve this edge, and then I'll notice that this edge is going to be put up here. Once again, that means it's going to be insertable. So, and then insert again. Now for cases where the V edge is flipped, the logic still applies to some degree, however there are some exceptions. So 2-flip is very intuitive, and this one you can figure out with a lot of trial and error. So for example, in this case, I know there's multiple ways of solving this 2-flip. So I want to find what's gonna give me the best or lowest move count / best finger tricks. So for just beginning out, I wouldn't care about too much about the AUFs, or specifically the post AUF. Pre-AUF is something I think people should look at more. So in this case, there's multiple ways of doing it. If I do a sledge, this edge is going to be brought up right here. This edge is going to be put right here, meaning that it's going to be an insert away. So sledge, insert. But I could also do an insert to an insert if I inserted this piece and brought this center over to here. That would set this piece out here, and that would also give me an insert. So cases like Polish flip, as this is called, are examples of why just trying to solve the D edge doesn't work, because I mean, obviously it's flipped here, but there's multiple ways of solving this, and you don't want to be limited to just one option or like trying to solve one specific edge. So if I get it from this angle, I could solve this edge. And again, I can tell that that's going to give me an insert because this edge is going to be brought here and insert away. This edge will be brought down here, and meaning I can also just do an insert for it. So like that solves that edge can be inserted, and this edge will also be inserted. If I get this case from this angle, however, I could still solve multiple different edges. So I could do this edge and get a sledge, but that's not as good as the other option. I could solve this edge again and get this case. Additionally, you might also want to try stuff like this, where you see a bar, and that means that you could do a sledge to solve this bar. So here, do a sledge, and that gives me another insert. And that's up to you to play around with and try figuring out what's best. So the exceptions to this general intuitive L4E rule is for this case and its mirror. This one, you'll do hedge, you hedge, and there really isn't better options. However, that doesn't mean there aren't any other options. So you can do more fancy intuitive stuff where you force a different L4E case rather than an L3E case. So for example, if I did an insert with L'U, I get this L4E case, which I actually can cancel into. If I did it from here, I could do Ru, R prime, and get this L4E case. It's a similar logic for why 4-flip is the way it is, because doing the optimal 4-flip algorithm is really bad. So it's easier to just force a different L4E case. So in this case, you can do Ru prime R prime, L prime U L, Ru prime R prime, L prime U L. And if you look at that, you're actually doing insert, insert times 2. But there's also a different case that you're basically doing this case twice. So that's Ru prime R prime, L prime U L. And then that's the same as doing this case. That's basically doing that algorithm, but 1.5 times. So this one you can do L prime U L, and then you get this case. And these are some things that are a little bit harder to find, but if you aren't stuck to just trying to solve a DF edge, you can find more unique solutions like this that aren't necessarily the most optimal. However, they can be a lot faster. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly go over the general guidelines you should follow when trying to do intuitive L4E. And that is, if you are going to start with either a sledge / a hedge, or you're going to start with an insert of some kind. And if you do a sledge or a hedge, or you do an insert, for sledge or hedge, it should always lead to an insert. And if you do an insert, it should lead to a sledge or an insert, like that. However, if you do a insert and you can choose between a sledge or another insert, you should prioritize the insert over the sledge, because in most cases that is what is going to be better. Now, for the more special cases of L4E, where you can either do a sledge to another L4E case, or you can do an insert to another L4E case, the similar rules apply. The sledge should be the only sledge in that L4E, because you don't want to have two sledges in your algorithm. It's just inefficient most of the time, and like it's not that good for finger tricks. You do want to have insert to L4Es, and like in the certain situations where it works out, and that's up to you to find out, or you can look at the pyramid sheet if you get stuck. But insert to L4E, it can have like an insert to an L4E containing a sledge, or it can be an insert to L4Es that are just inserts. But once again, you should not have two sledges in the algorithm. Now notice how I've always been bringing up sledges, hedges, and inserts, but I'm not bringing up this 3-cycle case. And that's because the only time you should do this 3-cycle case is when you get the 3-cycle case. There's never an L4E where you want to force this. And for the 3-cycle case, when you do get it, the same logic applies as for other L4Es, because there's many different ways of solving this case. Like, instead of just doing that, you can also do like that and other stuff. But you never want to force it, because it's not as good. There's always better options. So that's why you never, so no 3 cycles. That is super important, and that is something I see a lot of people make the mistake of doing. So just remember, you do not want 3 cycles. You only want to have sledges and inserts. And that's it.